Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to another brilliant event for WoWFEST Lockdown. My name is Alice and I am the Project Manager for Children and Young People here at Writing on the Wall. And I'm really pleased and excited today because we have got the brilliant Sharna Jackson joining us. And Sharna Jackson is an author and an artistic director who specialises in developing and delivering socially engaged digital initiatives for children and young people across culture, publishing and entertainment. And she has written a number of books, including High Rise Mystery, which features in a series actually. So there's a series about the detective duo sisters, and we're going to have a reading from High Rise Mystery today. But also there's a second book in the series, Mic Drop, and that was out in April. So hopefully we'll get a chance to chat to Sharna a little bit about that as well. So we're thrilled to have Sharna with us. She is going to chat through her book and a bit about herself when we have a chance to do some questions at the end. But before then, Sharna is going to read to us from High Rise Mystery. I had the opportunity to read the book and I absolutely loved it, and I know you guys will as well. Nick and Norva are brilliant characters. So at the end, there'll be a chance for a Q&A, so you will get a chance to ask any questions you want to. I have got loads of questions I want to ask. So before then, Sharna's going to do a reading for us. So without further ado, I will hand you over to the wonderful Sharna. Welcome.
Hi everybody. Hi, can you hear me? I'm sure you can. Hello, I'm Sharna and I'm really excited to be part of WoWFEST. And yeah, I'm going to be reading from High Rise Mysteries. Okay, I will get started. If you think finding a body is a fun adventure, you're 33% right. Hugo Knightley Webb, 45, antiques dealer and occasional art teacher. Curly white hair, straight up dead. This was a fact. One I could confirm personally because we, that's Norva and I, just found his body. 1427 on July 23rd, the hottest day of the year so far, 35 degrees and rising. We knew we'd find him. It wasn't coincidence or happenstance. No, we knew. But prior knowledge didn't make the discovery any less shocking or painful or smelly. We located the body using a system I call my triangle of truth. Naturally, it has 3 angles: facts, evidence, and deduction. That's just how I work. Me, Annika, Nick, Alexander, 11, science-led with a shaved head. Norva Alexander, 13, my sister, long braids, short temper, my partner in solving crime. She has her own system. She feels things in her stomach, bones, and waters. Whatever waters are, I try not to think about Norva's liquids too much. That's an approximation of our collaboration, actually. Norva shouts theories and says seemingly stupid stuff. I then organise those words and think about them critically. This is, according to Norva, teamwork. According to her, she's the gut and I'm the nut. I should be offended, but I'm not. I'm used to it. To be fair to Norva, we both strongly suspected something was wrong through our noses. It smelt wrong on the try since Saturday. Dead wrong. The try is, apparently, a very special estate. It doesn't feel like it to many of us, though. We made models of it in art club once. Straws and paper mache, glue and gravel. Hugo said the try was a seminal example of brutalism, but Hugo used to say a lot of random things. He won't be saying so much now, unfortunately. Oh, this situation is terrible. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. Again, I'll hold it together. Yes, the try. Norva says that these ends are a scorching hotbed for stories. She's not wrong. We've long solved the graffiti games, Where the Ball At, and the Cat Farm Chronicles. But this is different. Bigger, scarier, dangerous. The stakes are so much higher. We'll start a real detective agency one day, a local business for local people. Give something back to our estate. Our tagline would be, if something's going down at the try, we'll know what's up. Norva shouted branding at the end of that sentence and flicked her hair into my eyes. So that's why I, keep the try files. The files are a top secret folder that includes, but is not limited to, logs, checklists, tables, photographs, screen grabs, recordings, both audio and video, which we use to track movements, register events, keep logs, follow leads, find culprits, and serve justice. I store the documents online so we can access and update them on our phones and on our almost obsolete computer. Where we go, they go. If we know, there are notes. The files in this format and configuration have been active for 11 months. I won't ever stop updating them. Not now there's a real case with a very real body. A body that belonged to someone I cared about. Not now they're actually important. Not now we need to find who did this to Hugo and why. I gave Hugo 15 minutes. If he didn't arrive at the hub for art club by 14:15, our suspicions would be confirmed. Dead. Dead since Saturday morning. Hugo was notoriously punctual and had only been late for art club once, last Christmas. It was only 2 minutes, but he burst into the hub at 14:02, super red-faced, full white beard, sweating in the snow. A tardy arty Santa. He was incredibly apologetic and disappointed in himself. I swear he swore under his breath. Hugo told us, well, just me, everyone else was late too, that being late was disrespectful of everyone's time, the most precious resource of all. Hard agree. Lateness is rudeness. Now I was on edge, my nerves utterly frayed. Please don't be late, Hugo. Please. Not today. Welcome to the tensest 15 minutes of my life. Norva and I arrived at the hub at 13:50. Art club was due to begin at 1400. What are we doing again today? Asked Norva. The poster's not on the door. I reached for my phone and scrolled to a picture I took of it last week. I held my breath. Today's topic is ancient Egyptian death masks, Norva, I said slowly. I hoped it was ironic. I hoped it was something we could all laugh hysterically about later, at home, over tall glasses of juice and green salads. Norva chuckled. If that's not an omen, I don't know what is. It wasn't funny to me, not at all. I rolled my eyes at her while my heart fluttered in my chest. Ancient Egyptian death masks, really, Hugo? I preferred the sciences, definitely, but art classes with Hugo tended to be fun, interesting, and confusing. I understand about 60%, to be generous. What Hugo says about art doesn't make sense to me. How is a messy, unfresh bed art or rows of bricks? It's utterly perplexing. I liked how he talked and cared about it, though. I loved it. At 13:51, Norva pushed open the double doors into the hub. Oh my days, she gasped. It's like opening the oven when your roast is ready. Oh, blast furnace levels in here. She fanned her face dramatically and slumped against the wall. The hub is a large, frankly grubby room where tri-residents hold meetings, classes, and celebrate births, deaths, and marriages. It has a number of distinguishing marks. The top three are 1. Scuff marks. Kids have skidded and slid across this floor in black-soled shoes for decades. 2. A large sooty burn on the south wall. The date of its first appearance was 1808. As last summer, someone, chief suspect Barry West, 62, grey hair, purple face, yellow teeth, landlord of the on-site bar Bermuda's next door, he decided to have an ill-advised impromptu indoor barbecue, which evidently got out of hand. The tri-files began that very day. I felt bad for our dad, aka Pap, 39, aka Joseph Alexander, single dad, sadly. dances so badly. As the head caretaker at the Try, he has attempted to cover, in Try Yellow, the estate's default paint, that burn 3 times, but it returns without fail. Norva says the burn is iconic and claims it reminds her of Jesus at Easter on a constant comeback. The third thing, Hugo's teaching desk with matching chair. Both are fashioned from dark mahogany wood and cracked forest green leather. They look and smell old and expensive. I helped Hugo and Pap move it here when I was 8. Hugo really appreciated my directions and smiled at my guidance. I smiled at the memory. I liked helping Hugo. He usually set out tables, chairs, and art materials around his desk in the morning before class. If I was early, and I normally was, I'd help too. Today, the tables and chairs were stacked against the east side of the room next to the chair cupboard. There were no sign of the materials. At 1352, we noticed a poster, hand-drawn, black biro, poorly photocopied, on the west wall for last Friday's Triangels meeting. That's the estate's fundraising and volunteer group. I knew the artist. Chief Triangel and manager of the hub, Charity Jane Cooper, 42, overly sweet, never sour. I shook my head. We should have been at that meeting, without a doubt. But no, we were at home instead, watching Death in Paradise, aka Dip. It's Norva's favourite. It's a murder mystery show on the BBC. She waited, an impatient, 8 months and 12 days for the new series. It's too good to watch on iPlayer, apparently. Dip on catch-up, she spat last Friday evening. How very dare you, she said, looking me up and down with her eyes. So that was that. She had to see it in real time, and I had to be there to capture her reactions. Missing that meeting had, potentially, set us back. There were gaps in our knowledge. Gaps we'd need to fill urgently if we were right about Hugo. We opened the windows at 13:53. We put 5 tables and 10 chairs out around Hugo's desk. My head and my upper lip were dripping sweat, but who wouldn't sweat in this heat? Pap, I supposed. He's in decent shape. I thought about our neighbours. Who else was healthy? Mrs. Kowalski, definitely. She's surprisingly fit. Flat 222, next door to us. She looks between 60 and 150, depending on the light. She's 5'0". She's so strong for an old lady, constantly carrying carrier bags. I laughed at a mental image of her. She was dressed as a Victorian strongman, 100 Tesco bags at the end of a barbell. I was distracting myself with silly thoughts. Focus, Nick, concentrate, I said to myself. What? Asked Norva. Nothing. We sat and we waited. Footsteps at 13:56. The door opened. We jumped in our seats. I looked over to Norva. Her eyes were wide and wet. But it wasn't Hugo. My heart sunk. It was George Shah, 13, tall, thin, music is life. He sauntered into the room. Yes, N squared, how do? N squared is our couple name, according to George. I hated to admit that I kind of liked it. It's mathematical and logical. I nodded at George, while Norva high-fived him. He looked around the hub. Yo, it's super sparse in here today, he said, his hand to his chin. Where Hugo at? Old boy is normally raring to go at this point, no? He would be, normally. He should be. Yes, I said. No sign of him all weekend, actually. It's slightly concerning. Lies. It was so much more than slightly concerning. I've seen, said a surprised George. He narrowed his eyes. You've got a case brewing? Might have legs, you know. Norva's interest was immediately piqued. How so? George crouched next to Norva. Hugo didn't look too fresh at Friday's meeting. Not good at all. He was struggling with the heat, big time. Then, that stuff with him and your dad, that was nuts. He shook his head. Stuff with our dad? What stuff with Pap? I asked loudly. Norva spun her head around to look at me with confused and concerned eyes. Ring, ring! George's phone. He put his hand up to us to pause our conversation while he answered his call. Yes, yes, Mum. All right? All right? All right, I'm on it. Okay, call your jets, I'm coming. That was Nina. Nina Shah, 37. Short, small body, long dark hair. George entered his call. Listen, both, I got to bounce like... Norva wasn't having it. George, she shouted. What the hell? It's Monday afternoon. The meeting was on Friday night. She kissed her teeth, but she wasn't finished. Why are we just getting into this now? She ranted. What's your deal? What timeline are we living on? Clearly one where you don't keep me in the loop. George smiled. He, like me, was used to this, Norva. Hey, Norva, behave. Listen, first of all, I wasn't even supposed to be there. My mum literally dragged me, saying she wanted to join them tri-angels. Not now, though. Loud out. Anyway, be glad I went because it was flames and fire. It was big. Secondly, I did text you, innit? But you think you're all that, leaving me on red. I see you. Norva looked down. Oh, yeah, I was deep in dip. George slapped her on the back. Yeah, I bet you were. I fill you in later, swear down, but I got to check in with Mum. Family first. You know how it goes. In a bit. George pushed the double doors and left. There was still no sign of Hugo at 14:03. He had now officially broken his record for lateness. I waved my phone at Norva, shaking my head. It's 3 minutes past 2. Yeah, I know, she said, shaking her wrists. Something is definitely up. This feeling in my bones is amping up. They're starting to tingle, you know. No, I didn't know. But I'd hoped that all 206 bones in her body would rattle some sense into her. How could we have missed that meeting? I clenched my fist. Anger distracted me. I hated my sister. No, I didn't. That was a bit strong. I certainly hated her obsession with that Death in Paradise show, though. It's not even good. Nick, I whispered to myself, focus. I unclenched my fist and my palms were wet with sweat. I struggled to hold my phone. I looked closely at my hands. They're about the third of the size of Hugo's. That's an exaggeration mostly, but his hands were huge. We all traced our hands for a display we made for Diwali at Art Club once. We had to take his out. It completely disrupted the pattern. Hugo himself that he unbalanced the work. His disappointment was palpable. He removed his hands from the work and drummed his fingers against his lips with wet eyes. Thinking about wetness reminded me just how dry my mouth was. I needed a Vitonica desperately. Serena makes Vitonica. That's Serena Knightley Webb, 38. Blonde, tall, thin, entrepreneur. Hugo's sister. Vitonica is named after two of Serena's favourite things. Her mother, Veronica, R.I.P., and vitamins. When I tried my first one, Serena told me that the juices cleanse and balance one's system. I didn't know about that, but I did know that they're delicious and sweet and satisfying and calming, and I love them and I need them. I needed one right now. My name is Nick and I have a juice problem. I thought about Serena. She'd been a resident on the Tri for 18 weeks and 1 day now. When she moved in, she told us that her and her husband had consciously uncoupled. That meant they broke up in plain English. They used to live in a large house in West London, but he kept that even though she paid for half of it. How that's fair, I don't know. Now she's in a flat with her brother in southeast London. A hardcore downgrade for some, but not Serena. She loved the Tri, and the Tri loved her back, me included. If you needed her, she'd be there. She'd worked hard to fit in. She ran a yoga group, a dog sitting and walking service, a Facebook group for the residents. Vitonica was her newest venture. Juices made from fruits from the garden and then sold in Better Buy. She wanted a stall at Whitford Market next to Hugo's pitch. The plan was to sell the juices for double the Tri price and donate all the proceeds back to the estate. Inspirational. I looked at my phone. 14:05. Still no Hugo. Let's review the receipts, Norva sighed. Let me back these bad feelings and bone tingles up with some facts. Times are tick-tocking. The receipts is what Norva calls the tri-file sometimes. I don't understand why. They had a perfectly acceptable name already. She reached for her phone. I pushed my chair closer to hers to see her screen. Our sweaty forearms velcroed together immediately. My stomach flipped. It was going for gold in Olympic diving. Open trythoughts.doc and scroll backwards, please, I asked. Norva read and acted out her words. Of course she did. Saturday morning, 10:30, roughly. Hotter than hell. The lift has been out on corner 1 for 2 days, so I walked Ringo on 3rd Avenue, outside the flat on floor 21 for his morning wee. Something is ripe in the trash chute, bare and fresh, next level. The Bryn Bros are still striking, 138 hours and counting, according to Nick. Council need to pay up stat. But, I'm not convinced this is just trash, doing its trash thing, living its trash life. My waters say no. It's different. I went to check it out, so embarked on the epic odyssey that is going down the stairs. Me and Ringo literally sniffed around a bit and crossed the wreck for some fresher air. Asked a few people about the stench. No one thinks it's shady. Not one. This lot are no-nos having zombies, I swear. Pap reckons it could be the sequel to The Summer of Infinite Nappies. Never forget. But I remember those. I'm not having it. It's not the same. No. It's well hard to describe the smell in words and not through, contemporary dance. But here goes. It's just so off, like sweet and sour and musty and flowery, and also, importantly, like many shades of poop all at the same time. I just don't like it. 14:08. Hugo still late. I silently smirked at my rhyme, then shook my smile away. I had to focus again. So the stench began on Saturday. Confirmed, I said with a sigh, back in the moment. Seen, said Norva. And it smells even worse today, right? Like it's getting worse every minute. What else we got for Saturday? Open bedroom windows logs.doc, Norva. There'll be more information in there. The document took its sweet time to load. Norva drummed her fingers on the desk impatiently. These entries started 10 months and 2 weeks ago, when Pap got me the telescope for my 11th birthday. Norva had written a note in it that said, "We might be in the gutter, but we're definitely looking at the stars." She's looked at the stars with it precisely never. She quickly found other uses for it, closer to Earth though. The telescope tales. Her title, my words. Hugo leaves for Whitford Market by 6:30 on Saturday morning, without fail. Today, his van remained on the try. This was a fact. We checked at 9:55, 1500, 1700 and 2100. The van has a permanent spot, to the chagrin of other car owners on the estate, at the entrance to Better Buy, blocking the view. We know that Mark normally appears at approximately 10 o'clock to get milk, full fat 4 pints, a magazine about celebrities for his mother, and cream for his spots. Today we couldn't see him. Norva was disappointed and looked dejected until 10:13 when she left to walk Ringo. That's Mark Walker. Young, dull, broke. Norva is convinced that their end game, whatever that means, and will live on the try within the next 10 years. To Norva, Mark is mysterious and strong. To me, he's basic and she's easily impressed. He works with Pap in the evenings, weekends, and during the holidays. He needs the money. He's more of a hindrance than help, according to Pap. But Norva thinks Pap is #blessed to spend honest time with him. Norva was also thirsty at 14:11. I was too, but I was mostly scared. Hugo, come on, please. I made a quick list of other things I liked about Hugo. The glasses he wore on a chain, the way he peered over them when he was making a point, and his rings, one on each finger. It was gaudy, but great. At 14:13, Norva stared straight ahead at Barry's burn. She smiled slightly, but I didn't know why. 0% of this situation was amusing to me. None of it. She glanced at her phone. 2 minutes until the deadline, she said, with a horrid chuckle. At the stroke of 14:14, I reached for Norva's hand. She swatted it away. Don't be ridiculous, she muttered. 14:15. My heart sank. Time's up, Norva said. Let's go. Norva pushed the table away from us with both hands, stood to attention and announced loudly, to no one, Alexander's out, bozos. Summoning me to join her with her eyes, Norva tossed her braids over her shoulder and turned on her heel. She stomped out of the hub, busting through the double doors, letting them swing back into my face. Welcome to my life. I followed her into the searing heat on the Tri. I despise the sun, hate it. It's undoubtedly my least favourite celestial body. Summer is my personal sweaty hell. I winced at the heat and light. I put my back against the wall in a quick, practical attempt to stay in the shade. The wall was roasting hot too. I leapt away. Why are you out here cringing like Dracula accidentally catching dawn's first rays, Nick? Get it together, Norva said. She threw out her arm and pointed her head back. To the bins! Was this a game to her? We passed Better by and waved hello to Sissy St. Clair, 59, wheelchair, church on Sunday, gossip all week. Sissy offered us a wilted wave in return from behind the till. Hugo's van was parked outside the shop. I noticed it immediately, but Norva slapped me on the back and used 2 fingers to point at the van and her eyes repeatedly to ensure that I saw it. Clock it, she said in a low voice. I nodded in dehydrated agreement. I see it. I peered inside the van's windows. There were piles of open, awkwardly stacked boxes. I took a photo and pinched and zoomed in to take a closer look. Junk to me, antiques to Hugo. Norva shouted to Sissy from the doorway, her hands on her hips. You seen Hugo, sis? Sissy shook her head. No, girls, not since the meeting. What time? I asked, stepping away from the van. I pulled out my phone and opened trythoughts.doc. Well, I was one of the last to leave. I was chatting with Mrs. Kowalski. You know, it's been 4 years since our Lord took her husband. Sissy made the sign of the cross over her chest and looked into the sky. God bless his soul. 4 years on Friday. Time is the master, but the time, Sissy, what time? I broke in. I had to. Life's too short for her sermons. Well, I got home just after 11, so he was gone by 10:30. Yeah, definitely. Sissy inched closer to her fan. You left for Serena after your dad stormed out. Jane came back to lock up just before 11 and kicked us out. Then I went home and watched Death in Paradise on catch-up. I spoke to Sissy, but stared at Norva. Death in Paradise? On catch-up? How convenient. Norva fixed her eyes to the floor. I know, replied Sissy. Living in the future is truly a blessing. It really is, I said. Thanks, Sissy, Norva muttered through tight lips as we left the shop. We ducked beneath the broken window of Bermuda's, chief suspect Barry. Norva touched the "Don't get lost in this triangle" graffiti spray painted on the glazed bricks below, chief suspect Barry. Inside the pub, a glass smashed. The residents shouted, "Hey!" in unison and clapped in appreciation. Norva thrust her head through the shattered window, millimeters away from a definite decapitation. Yo, Barry, is Hugo in here? She shouted. Barry stood behind the bar, laughing at the spilt drink. No, haven't seen him all weekend. Wasn't at the lock-in after the meeting on Friday night or on Saturday night. Thought he'd be here on Sunday, but he's not answering his phone. If you see him, tell him he's a mug. Joking. We love him, really. The pub's patrons broke into song. We love you, Hugo. We do. What's a lock-in? I asked, pushing Norva out of the way, ready to expand my notes. Doesn't matter, shouted Barry over the singing. Forget I said that, and don't remember to tell your dad either. Barry and the whole pub laughed. We nodded our thanks and moved on. 10 meters from the bin, the smell became sharper, stronger with each step. Loud music played in a flat high above us. The bass thumped in my chest and down to my toes. My heart beat fast in time with the song. I inched forward, but Norva pulled me back. Now, Nick, she said, holding onto my arm, prepare yourself. If Hugo's really in there, you know he's going to look rough, right? Real bad, like a zombie, probably. She laughed, putting her arms out stiffly in front of her, crossing her eyes. He might want brains. Luckily, your bald head gives him easy access. Nom, 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 nom. Confirmation received. This was still a game. You're not funny, Norva, I said. Not at all. My bottom lip trembled. My eyes grew moist. Norva threw her hands in the air. I'm sure it's just a fox in there, Nick. Her hands on my shoulder, her smile dimmed. That's what I'm telling myself. Anyway, I think I've got one more chapter in me. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'll read one more. We pushed open the doors to the refuse area and we were instantly welcomed by the resident colony of flies. Whoa, Norva whispered out of the corner of her mouth. My eyes watered immediately. I blinked quickly, 5 times to clear them. There was a considerate number of bin bags. I estimated 68. Approximately a third had split open and 95% of those were melting, fermenting, or a combination of both. I noted cans, bean, beer, beef, corned, papers, news, walls, sand, fruit, off, rotting, rotted. Norva elbowed me, pointing out a bottle of Vitonica. Well, Vitonica in a previous life. In its current form, it was a globulous, congealing, fruity lava lamp of doom. Norva rubbed her stomach sarcastically and licked her lips. I opened my mouth to offer a witty retort. Regrets. A large fly flew into my mouth. I spat it out and rubbed at my face. Norva laughed through tight lips. I held my breath as much as I could as my eyes streamed. I wasn't sure where to start. I looked at Norva for guidance. Norva jabbed her finger at the large metal skep directly under the chute. Whatever's dead is buried in there. Get in, she said between her fingers. You're bald, you wear the same outfit every day and you take up less space. I shook my head vigorously. Also, I've got 2 years on you, so deal with it. You have no choice. 0% chance. I admit it. In some minimal ways, I look up to Norva, but lines and limits exist. Can't do this, I replied. I rubbed my arm. I can't. I shook my head. No. It didn't take much to convince her. Norva shrugged. All right, fine. Whatever. I'm going in. She twisted her braids into a top knot and tied them with a black band she always kept around her wrist. If I was right about Hugo, I'm sure she would want the glory. Whatever the glory of finding a corpse in a skip is. And that's the end of my reading from High Rise Mystery.
Hello. Thank you so much for that, Sharna. I really, really enjoyed hearing your reading. And I really, really enjoyed the book myself as well.
Thank you.
And we've had loads of really nice comments as well. And there's loads of questions I just want to ask you. So I'll ask you a couple and then I'll have a look at what everyone else has been asking and see if we can have a little chat about those as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Fab. So the first thing for me is I love that it was a mystery, but it felt so like such a different style of a mystery. Like when I think of mysteries, I think of like Sherlock Holmes and like Miss Marple, and which I loved, by the way. But I loved that it was like a total new take on a mystery. And I really loved the setting as well. I wondered, like, what is it that you love about writing mysteries, and why did you pick the Cry as the setting?
Yeah, so I love mysteries just like you, Sherlock Holmes and Poirot. I don't really watch Death in Paradise, but I did. But I really like those. I really like mysteries because they're kind of like games, and you have to be, when you're reading it, you feel like, well, you have to be quite smart to get ahead of what the detectives are thinking, and I really like that. but what, like you're saying, a lot of mysteries seem to be set in like the 1930s or 40s, and they like focus around people being really rich and posh, and I'm none of those things. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to take the like kind of like the rules of murder mysteries and like put them into a setting where that's more current. And then I came up with the try because I really like architecture and buildings. So I spent a lot of time, probably more time than I should have, like coming up with the try and thinking about all the flats in there and how they all work. But yeah, for me, it was just like the idea of putting like two things that I really like together in a way. It's a bit of an experiment to see what would happen.
Yeah, and also I think like because of the setting of it being a high rise, there's so many mixes of different people from all different walks of lives and cultures, and I thought that was a really nice eclectic mix of people. Was that inspired by people you know in real life, or?
Thanks for saying that, because yeah, exactly that. There's loads of different kinds of people living on estates, and I don't live on an estate, but I have friends who did, and like living on an estate is not just like a negative thing. I think people who live in estates, unfortunately, they get like estates get like a bad reputation, but there's lots of like lovely things happening and lots of community and people being super neighborly with each other. And although High Rise Mystery obviously has a murder in it and there's like a death, it was really important for me to show that estate life is more than doom and gloom and a negative place to be. There's lots of community there. And also for me, it's really interesting to think that in one tall building, behind every door is like a different story and a different whole like kind of life. And so it's like Norva in the book, she's like, oh, it's a hotbed for stories, and it kind of is like really true. It's true for me, and I'm like I think about these like fictional people a lot, maybe more than like what's like normal. But yeah, I do think about, you know, all the people in the different flats and like what they're doing and like what their stories are. I mean, I could probably like write books and books just about like one building in that estate.
Yeah, I think like all the characters felt really distinct, and I really like the way you describe the beginning each character. You know, it was just like, he's this person, he's that, and you just feel like you can get straight on board and picture them as a character. And it does actually link to one of the stories. Someone's asked that the voices are so strong and authentic. How long did it take you to find the right voices and the right language for each of those characters?
Okay, well, the entire process of the book was quite a short, because well, it won't sound short, but in like for other books, it was about 18 months. So I spent a lot of the time thinking about Nick and Norva and how I wanted them to have like not a sibling rivalry, but to be quite like annoyed with each other, but underneath that there was lots of love, but make them feel like really separate to each other. Because I've got two younger brothers and I always wanted an older sister. That's no disrespect to my brothers, they're great. But that's kind of like where I imagined like a sister relationship to be like with your older sister. Like you're kind of impressed by her on a level, but then you can also, she's like a ridiculous person from Nick's perspective. So all in all, I did the entire process of the book was about 18 months, but I did spend like a few months like working out their tone and how different they would be. And I thank you. That's a really nice comment that someone said that. It's really sweet.
I think it's like clear that their dynamics, like they're obviously really different, but they seem to kind of work together, and they've not that natural sibling thing of kind of arguing with each other one minute and then completely forgot about it the next, and just getting on with what's happening in the mystery and everything. Someone else has commented a little bit on it was just a nice comment that they'd said that they loved George in the way he speaks.
George George to me is so funny. Like the inspiration for George, I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was like after there was an advert for Nike that Nike did, and it was about London. And it was like a really good advert. It's about 5 minutes long, and it was like things that people do in London. And there was this boy at the end, and he was like, I only have half a bike. And it was just like doing a wheelie, and he didn't have a front wheel. And it just made me laugh so much. And like George is Yeah, he's like a really sweet person and he's really into music, but he's just like, the way he says things like just cracks me up.
I think like someone has asked another question about how do you write? Let me just see if I can find what it says. How do you make how are you so good? Oh, that's nice of them. How are you so good at putting teen talk on a page and sort of making it easy? Because and making it seem like natural colloquialism as you would speak. And they're saying that when they write it, it always sounds a bit wrong.
Well, well, do you know what though? Like my biggest fear is that I become the cringe auntie at the wedding, and I'm like, that is like, because that's my energy completely. But I read a lot of websites about celebrity gossip, and I like look at the comments and see like the language that people use on those. I watch like a lot of like TikToks and things like that. And I've got, because my son's 10, so he's just starting to like pick up things as well. So he's always like calling me out for being cringe. So he's like proving his worth and has lots of value to me at the minute. But yeah, it's something that I'm really like, you have to be quite mindful. So I tried not to, I know it sounds like I did, but I tried not to have words in there that were like too slangy, because they kind of age out. But I try to, yeah, it's like a balance, because the minute you try and be cool is the moment that you are like the most uncool person ever. So if you want to write, I guess like a young person, is like talk to some young people, like kind of like see how they're speaking in spaces where adults aren't really watching them.
Yeah, that's true. In terms of the characters, in your story, do you start with the character and then build the story from there, or do you build the story and then add the characters in? What's your sort of process?
Okay, so for High Rise Mystery, I kind of like came up with like the top line idea. I was like, two sisters solve crimes on an estate. PI's in the projects. That's what like the working title of it was. But to really get started, I thought about the characters a lot, and I thought about them, how they work together, what their family dynamic is like. So it started off with like Nick, Norva, their dad, their family group, like where's their mum, then the community, and then the building. So like I treated like the building like a character as well. And then in terms of the story, I had like a rough idea, and then had a plan, and that went out the window as I started writing it, because you're like, oh, actually this is a cool idea if I put this in. And there's lots of like XXX's where things are like placeholder, and I didn't have a name for Vitonica, the drink, until like the last minute, and like Serena was called something else. And so I kind of just tried to make sure I had like the plot down, but some of the specifics were still a bit hazy, because when you're writing a murder mystery, like the plot is really important, because if the characters are somewhere that you've just forgotten about, you're reading that they're hiding and they're the culprit, and then you've messed up, and it's like
that does link a little bit with the question that someone's got actually, and the question I sort of had as well. Someone on Facebook has asked, and going back a little bit to, you mentioned your interest in architecture, do you do any drawings or diagrams as part of your writing process to help you sort of organize your thoughts and plan the story? And I think that does link, like I was thinking, how do you keep track of all of these characters, and where they all are?
Yeah, I totally do. So I have, okay, this is like a secret, but it's not really a secret, because I'm going to tell you all now. So Hugo Knightley Webb, the victim in the book, is based on two friends of mine, one called Knightley, one called Webb. And Webb is an engineer, and he does architecture and things. So when I was telling him about this book, he really helped me like sketch out the try architecturally, and I was like, well, this would would stay up if it was rendy, and so he made it real for me. That really helped. In terms of characters, I don't have like a character sheet, but that's a thing that people do, and I think I would do it if I was to write another series. And that's to like have like a profile where it's name, birthday, favorite color, favorite drink, how they would answer particular questions. And have one of those for each of your characters would be a safe and sane thing to do. But I didn't do that, and I regret it. because when you're writing the second book, you have to like reread the first one to remind yourself of like the nuances between the characters. But yeah, I definitely drew out the try loads and loads and loads and loads of times, because it's got these connecting walkways on floors 7, 14 and 21, and I really needed to make sure that they were like architecturally sound. So they currently weren't in the book because I closed them off. But yeah, a lot of time is spent like on the things that people don't really see in the book, but the things that make the story richer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you feel that reading it, it feels like a really rich and well thought out world. You feel like you're in it, which is really nice. And I know that there's another book which I can see just behind you.
Oh, look at this
series. Look at that. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about Mic Drop and what to expect in that book.
Yeah, sure. So Mic Drop came out in April, and so it's a really funny time to have a book out. Yeah. And Mic Drop follows the story of Nick and Norva are back, and somebody who is mentioned in High Rise Mystery comes back to the Try to film a music video, and she has an accident at the top of a tower, and the girls quickly have to solve that problem. Yeah, what can I tell you about it? This former resident of the Try was definitely about to die. That's that. I don't want to give too many spoilers. If you've read High Rise Mysteries, you can probably guess who that person is who dies. And it's interesting. It was a fun one to write, because I had to write, because the person is a musician, having to try and write song lyrics, good ones and bad ones was really hard. I will not do that again.
So there won't be an album coming out anytime soon?
No.
No. We've had a couple of questions as well about sort of diversity in terms of books and literature, and in terms of the characters that are in your book, and also just on a broader sense in terms of the literature that's out there. And I know that that's something that you're quite passionate about, making sure that there is more diversity within the work that young people are reading. Why do you feel that's so important? I mean,
yeah, of course. So diversity and encouraging different people to participate in the arts is super important to me, because for the arts and for culture to be interesting and for life to be interesting, we need a mix of voices telling different stories. Before my book came out, there was a report which said that basically 1% of the main protagonists in children's books were like little black kids. So you'd have more chance of seeing like a dog or a stick in a book being the main character than a black child, which is just such a like, it's a tragic and it's a shame. Like having black children in books is not me saying, because when High Rise Mystery came out, we had to do interviews and things, and it went on the BBC, and then it got picked up by some people on Twitter who started like, having a go at me, like telling me to go back to my own country, blah blah blah, if you want, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, well, I'm from this country, and all children, not just black children, but all children deserve to see other children in books being smart and clever and funny and resourceful, because hopefully it's like really tiny steps towards empathy and understanding each other and just behaving better to each other. And also for black girls to see them, it's really important for them to see themselves in stories. I didn't really see myself in stories when I was growing up, and it's important to see yourself not being like the things I said, like being resourceful and like thinking outside the box. It's like just having a break from like all the negativity, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely shocking, that the statistic you just said there. We've actually had a question which links slightly to it. Do you think that children's publishers are more open to writing by, for and about black people than they have been traditionally?
I think it's so okay, what do I say here? Yes, there's definitely more interest, as people can see that books that feature black children do sell and are interesting, and people of all races like them. So I think there is more interest about it. What worries me though is that it might be like a hot trendy thing that people do for a little while, and then it kind of falls off the radar again, and you know, people's race and their lives aren't a trend. So hopefully the more we can push the doors to let different kinds of writers in, with all kinds of diversity, you know, Black people, people of color, people with, you know, neurodiverse writers, people with different disabilities. Like, just the more stories we can have representing different perspectives, the better. And I just really hope that it's not a trend, and it's something that's sustainable.
And I think actually having conversations about it and talking about it and really pushing it forward is a good way to sort of hopefully make sure that it doesn't just become a flash in the pan, and that we could really carry on having more interesting stories out there.
Yeah, totally.
With that in mind, are there any sort of books that you have been reading recently that you've really enjoyed, or anything that any of our listeners might enjoy reading?
So Look Both Ways by Jason Reynolds. He's like really cool, and I really like the format of that book. So it's like children walking home from school from different perspectives. I'm really interested in like writing a story, like short stories that have like an overarching theme. I'm just about to start, this is not like current at all, I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. That's like on my list to read. And also like a super throwback would be The Runaways by Ruth Thomas, which is a book that I loved when I was a kid. It came out in 1989, and it follows these two kids, Nathan and Julia, who go to school in South East London, probably South London or South East London or East London. And they're not friends, but they're in the same class. And then one day they're walking to school, they find an abandoned house, and they find like, I think it's like £10,000 in there. So in like 1980s money, like imagine how much that was.
That's a lot of money.
Now, like they're like, oh, so much money. So they decide to like just literally run away from school, and they go like to Brighton and Devon and all over the country, and it's so good. It's like everything I wish I could have done when I was 10. I'm not suggesting anyone runs away, please. But like finding some money in an abandoned house and like spending it was such like a fantasy. So that's a really, really fun book to read.
Oh, fab. Thank you very much. We've just got another couple of nice comments that I thought I'd share just to be nice. So someone has just said that they're definitely going to be rereading your book together with their daughter.
Thank you. Oh, that's cool.
Really nice to hear. And then I'm just going to leave it finally with one last question. What do you love about writing? What's the thing that you just really sets your heart on fire about writing?
The best part about writing, this is such a hard question.
Sorry.
But the best thing about being published is when you meet people who've read the book and really like it, and then you realize that it's something that you didn't just like write for yourself, and someone else reads it and they talk to you about your characters, and they're like, oh, isn't it interesting how Jane did it? And you're like, what? And they love it. That's amazing. But the writing process, like, what's the best thing about writing is like conjuring these worlds and like making these worlds feel real, and it feels like an immense privilege to be able to just create worlds from nothing. Is like really great. I really love doing it, but meeting people who've read your book is like the absolute bomb.
Well, thank you very much. I think that does sound like the bomb. Thank you so much, Sharna, for reading from the book and for sharing your insights and answering all of our questions. It was really, really lovely to virtually meet you. And hopefully one day in the future you can come back to Writing on the Wall when we can be in the same room.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be so good. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Sharna.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you guys for watching and asking your thoughtful questions. It's been really, really enjoyable for us here at WoW to share these events with you guys. We've still got a couple more events coming up, so for children and young people. So next week on Tuesday we've got Natalie Reeves Billing story time at 11 AM, and then we're closing off our story times on Wednesday with the brilliant theatre company Travel Companions, and they're both at 11 live on our Facebooks. You can watch all of our other story times and live streams that we've done as well. And please do check out www.wowfest.uk for all the rest of the stuff that's going on in the festival. There's loads of stuff still happening. Thank you to our sponsors, Arts Council England, Liverpool City Council, the Institute for Creative Enterprise at Edgehill Uni, Unison Northwest and Liverpool John Moores University. And one last massive thank you to Sharna, and a big thank you to you guys for watching, and have a lovely bank holiday weekend.